Think of your biggest fear. Perhaps this is a fear of heights, of depths, of darkness, or open spaces. Also common on the list of biggest fears are clowns, dolls, spiders, and snakes. Whatever you may fear, the universe has an extensive list of different horrors to offer. Some of these are spaces without top or bottom, nor even an edge. Black holes, burning stars, lifeless, deadly objects. But what place could we truly name as the most terrible in the universe? We can hardly understand what space really is. After all, we never really leave Earth. Movies about the universe and the stories told by scientists help us imagine what's happening out there, but it's easy to forget about these when you see the ghost hand of God out in deep space. This is truly one of the most terrifying places in the universe. It was spotted by the New Star telescope. 17,000 light-years away from Earth, a gigantic palm hangs with its fingers spread apart. It looks poised to catch a red luminous crown. Its image looks eerily like an X-ray of a hand. In fact, this is a multi-layered photograph. The blue areas are high-energy X-rays. Red and green indicate lower energies. It's believed that the Hand of God was formed after a supernova explosion, and in its place, a pulsar appeared, rotating around its own axis 7 times per second. It also has powerful electromagnetic radiation, 15 trillion times stronger than what can exist on Earth. This is one of the highest rates currently known to exist. After the supernova explosion, matter scattered around, and the resulting pulsar began to scatter streams of charged particles all around. This is known as pulsar wind. It interacts with the magnetic fields of material from the supernova, causing them to glow with X-rays. This subsequently results in a pulsar wind nebula. Yet another secret of the ghost hand of God is that it only looks like this from a specific angle. The fingers of this cosmic hand are set differently than the base of the hand. This is indicated by the radiation's color. This means that these two areas are, in fact, physically separate from each other. This scientific explanation for this phenomenon doesn't make it any less frightening, by the way. Although the hand itself does not necessarily terrify us. Just the one from the Addams family. But the image of a skull, and a fiery one at that, is quite ominous in any given form. And this can also be seen in outer space. There, at a speed of over 3,334 miles per second, 5,366 kilometers per second, the screaming skull rushes forward, stretching on for tens of thousands of light years. It has dark eye sockets and a huge, twisted, toothless mouth. And all around it is a fiery ring with a size of more than 100,000 light-years. Researchers at NASA somehow managed to show this horror on Halloween. Good sense of humor they got there. Especially when you consider that the infernal skull is the well-known Perseus Cluster. It's located 350 million light-years from us and doesn't usually look like this in the other pictures. This time the image was taken using the orbiting Chandra Observatory in the X-ray spectrum. The Perseus Cluster contains thousands of different individual galaxies, but they cannot be recognized within the creepy skull due to an energy 1,000 times higher than that of visible light. It's emitted by a cloud of intra-accumulative gas. The word gas can be taken a number of ways, but something with a temperature of 50 million degrees Celsius definitely isn't the first thing to come to mind. But this cloud is just that. As it turns out, it's larger than all the galaxies in the Perseus Cluster combined. The dark circles that we perceive as the eyes and mouth of the skull are actually bubbles from explosions near the black hole. In the picture, it's disguised as the brightest spot in the center of the fiery circle. But the nose of the skull is something else entirely. It turns out that this is the shadow of a galaxy falling back into a black hole. Nothing can save it from death. Not us from the knowledge that out there in space there is literally a screaming fiery skull. And the worst thing is that it's not alone. In 2015, both outer space and astronomers again celebrated Halloween. This time, a terrible phenomenon flew near Earth. Just 300,000 miles from our planet, a dead stone skull swept by. Within scientific circles, it's known as Asteroid 2015 TB145. But because of its frightening shape and the date of its appearance, it was nicknamed Spooky and Great Pumpkin. At one time, it was probably just a comet, but now only a boulder about 2,000 feet in diameter remains. Space is full of such spooky things. Take a look at the nebula IC2118 in the constellation Orion. Its unofficial name is Witch Head Nebula. It turns out that space has its own fabulous old witch. It would seem her other half is the villain Sauron from The Lord of the Rings. Its frightening eye watches us from the constellation of the Piscis Austrinus. In fact, the Hubble telescope spotted an exoplanet there, surrounded by a huge dust ring. This is what creates this frightening resemblance similar to the eye of Sauron. But this is just a composite image with artificial colors. If you look at other photos of the planet, it doesn't seem so sinister. And so it is with all space objects. Certain encrypted images in them can be seen in a certain spectrum and form the right angle. More proof of this comes from the images of the Spitzer Space Telescope. Two bubbles at the site of mass formation of young stars were photographed. They were formed due to the powerful force of particles that drive cosmic dust away from the star. In the discovered star formation, two bubbles formed simultaneously in opposite directions. And when the Spitzer telescope looked at them in just the right light, humanity got a glimpse of the cosmic Black Widow Nebula. All this has a simple scientific explanation: pareidolia. This is when people see images and meanings in places where there are actually none. Have you noticed the shapes of animals in the clouds? Faces within ordinary household items? Or a moon rabbit on a satellite? Our brain is always looking for familiar images in everything, and so it finds them. This is what happened with the face on Mars. It was first photographed in 1976 by the Viking 1 mission. In the rocky Martian landscape, people recognized a human face. Scientists almost immediately declared that this is only light and shadow playing tricks. But many people did not believe this, so new theories emerged about the existence of life on Mars. Later photos of the same region showed that there was no face there, but the first photo still excites the imagination. If all this is just an invention of our brain, then what's the most terrible place in the universe? Scholars suggest that this would be absolute nothingness. Sometimes it's difficult for us to even imagine the size of the Earth. So can one comprehend the solar system or the Milky Way? Modern technologies have opened up vast expanses of the visible universe for us, but it's assumed that it is infinite overall. The latest calculations made by the Hubble telescope indicate the existence of 200 billion galaxies. There are more stars in them than all the grains of sand on Earth. This is a very famous comparison, but it is at least understandable for us in contrast to the concept of infinity. And all these galaxies, clouds of gases and dust, black holes, and other space objects, form a giant cosmic web. Glittering threads thousands of light years thick are surrounded by cosmic voids, spaces of unimaginable proportions where not even a single atom exists for hundreds of trillions of miles. Most of the universe consists of such voids. The smaller ones are 20 to 30 million light years wide. But other areas take up 10 times more space. Even among scientists, there is no single definition for the cosmic void. It seems that there is no form of matter whatsoever in these regions. But a void is considered to be a part of space, the density of which is less than 1/10 of the average density of the universe. In other words, there is something there. And that something could be galaxies. But compared to the size of the void, they are like a cat out on a football field. It looks like it is, but just barely. For a 300 million light-year supervoid, even clusters of galaxies would be extremely small. The Milky Way, where our solar system is located, has several neighbors. Together with it, the Andromeda Galaxy, Triangulum Galaxy, and several other small galaxies are included in the local group. And this is on the edge of the local void. They obviously didn't bother much with the names. The local void has a diameter of 150 million light-years. All normal galaxies move away from it at a speed of 175 miles per second, and only the dwarf galaxy SO 461-36 moves through the local void. Perhaps this is what loneliness looks like. Imagine 60 galaxies. This is quite difficult if you imagine not just images, but on their real scale. Now imagine what a section of the universe should be like for these 60 galaxies to be invisible. It's all simple, really. Its size is 330 million light-years, and its name is the Great Nothing, or Booth's Void. There are usually about 2,000 galaxies in such a segment of space, but nothing prevails there. If the Milky Way had been at the center of this void, then astronomers would have known about the existence of other galaxies only after the 1960s. It actually happened in the 1920s, and by the 60s people had already been in space. And this Great Nothing is far from the largest known. The Eridanus supervoid has a diameter of about 500 million light-years. Granted, it's located about 10 billion light-years away from us, so scientists still have their doubt about it. But still, over time, the Booth's void will grow to such proportions too. Other voids will also increase. There are several reasons for this. First, the universe is constantly expanding, and it does this just by increasing the distance in the cosmic web. Secondly, the expansion of voids is assisted by gravity. Space objects love to group together. Moons around planets, planets around stars, entire systems around black holes. And then the galaxies gather into huge structures. And when these clusters are formed, voids remain. They too merge into larger and larger patches of nothingness. Yes, scientists suggest that there actually is dark matter and energy, but they still have nothing to do with visible matter. There are no ordinary particles like atoms and photons, no light, no heat, no concepts of up and down, or perhaps even time. Only the unknown nothingness. Could there be anything worse than this?